Welcome back to the channel. My name is Conor McMillen. It is great to have you here, and if this is your first time visiting, welcome. I am an IFS-trained life coach, and I've been doing this work for over 10 years. I absolutely love it, and my goal here is to help individuals empower themselves to become kind of their own IFS guru, practitioner, therapist, and we do that by talking about the protocols that you can kind of apply to yourself. We also do that by looking at some specific parts or specific ways that parts can show up. And so in today's video, we're going to look at the latter. This is a scenario where different parts can show up and they kind of create this relationship which can kind of bind us or keep us a bit stuck until we bring our self-awareness online, and then we can kind of unsnaggle that stuff and free ourselves up from that stuck place. So in today's video, we're talking about the imposter syndrome. If you have never experienced this, that is amazing. I would kind of be surprised. I think most people experience imposter syndrome at some point in their life to some degree. And I know that I have absolutely experienced that. So what is imposter syndrome? You probably already know because it's talked about and we kind of as a society have an understanding of what it is. It's that common. But from an IFS perspective, this is maybe something you haven't quite considered. In my mind, from an IFS perspective, what is happening in imposter syndrome is that we have just received validation from the outside in some way that we are valuable. And when we receive that, a part of us that doesn't feel valuable turns on, and another part sees that and says, this can't be real because you're not valuable. And this part says, that's true, I'm not valuable. Are you interested in becoming an IFS coach? The self-leadership coaching training might be a great fit for you. I have a link in the description box down below where you can get all the information. Reach out to me with any questions. Again, this is a two-part thing. I don't believe that this is just one part that feels like an imposter. I believe this is two parts having an interaction. And so when these two parts show up, guess what? A whole bunch of other parts show up. Because once these parts begin to engage in the I am an imposter or you are an imposter and I am an imposter, basically it's the same, it has the same meaning, it's just different language as you are not good enough. And this part saying that's true. That's basically what's happening. So when you have that set up where a part that is critical is telling another part that it's not valuable, and you have a part that struggles feeling its value and its worth, agreeing and saying you are absolutely right, I am totally not valuable, then it triggers a lot of other parts. And in the imposter syndrome dynamic, most likely what you're going to see are parts that come up that want to do a really good job, want to be really on point. We might call these parts perfectionists. So a perfectionist part could show up and try to make everything perfect to verify, no, I am good enough. See, I can do it perfectly. We might also have a workaholic part come online or a striver part that's very strong and will bulldoze everything out of its way in order to get this thing done. Whatever it has decided, if we can get that thing done, then I can feel valuable. And in particular, this little part over here that doesn't feel valuable, we can help it feel valuable. We also might have kind of an opposite reaction where maybe apathetic parts come online because they just have given up. They're like, well, if I'm not good, then why should I try? I'd rather just not try and then not be disappointed. We might have depressed parts come up. We might have anxious or stressed parts come up. And we might have all of those parts come up. So you can see how what we typically think of in society as this one singular thing, oh, you're experiencing imposter syndrome. It's more complex than that when we're talking about it from the IFS lens. There are at least two parts engaged in something here. And remember, it's different language, but it has the same meaning. One part says you're not valuable. Another part says you are right. And from that place, then we have these other parts that show up. So even though we are kind of making this singular thing called imposter syndrome more complex by adding different parts into it. What we're actually doing is giving ourselves a chance to see this thing from a whole different vantage point. And from that point, we also are developing a deeper sense of self-awareness. And you can't do anything about anything until you can see it, until you can actually understand it and be with it. And self-awareness is the most important part in the IFS process. So take a moment now or after this video to consider, how do you feel when imposter syndrome hits you? And can you actually feel the existence of these two parts? Most likely, these parts interact all the time, but use different language. And then from that place, if you can see this interaction, notice what other parts get turned on when these two are interacting. The other important piece to remember here is that self, the energy of self, this calm, curious, confident, compassionate place, there is no imposter there. So I do not believe that a part of you, a critical part of you, is saying, self, you are an imposter. I really don't think so. I don't think a part would say that to self. And I also know that self would not say to another part, you are an imposter. That would not happen. So this means if you feel the imposter syndrome, that self has been pushed down a little bit, and that there are some parts up here that may even be really up here in the driver's seat. And the best thing that you can do is to have awareness of their existence. That will help bring more self online. When you have a little bit of self online, then you can bring curiosity. What's going on here? How do you feel? How do you feel? Being able to kind of take these parts out and put them in front of us, and then spending a little time with each one. There's many layers to these processes, and obviously everybody's system is going to be different. I'm speaking in grand generalities because I want to speak to a broad audience. But I think in general, these things will apply to you, and there will be variation for you because you're a distinct, perfect, and beautiful human being, separate from everybody else in how you function. And yet we do have similarity here. We have common things here. And I know that every system needs self-awareness. And that's the first step, self-awareness, self-awareness, self-awareness. And when we have that, then we can use the activation of self through self-awareness to bring in the curiosity. And that's also the first step in engaging with these parts from a curious place. And if you are genuinely curious and just ask questions, tell me more is a really good one. Tell me more. How do you feel? Tell me more. Then you can start to understand. And with understanding comes compassion. And that's what these parts actually need, is compassion. They do not need to change. And they definitely don't need to be forced to change. They need to be understood. And they need someone like you to understand them. I hope that's a helpful video. Please leave your comments down below. Have you experienced imposter syndrome? I definitely have. What's been your experience? And can you apply some of the things I'm talking about here to that situation the next time you feel it? If you're looking for more content, or you would like to do some work with me, you want to engage in one of the programs that I offer, check out internalfamilysystems.org. I would love to connect with you, and I hope you have a beautiful day.